And we've got an intro.
And we're
Hey, we're getting good at this.
we are professionals. I know that's amazing. I love that video. I love the music you picked for that video.
Hey, welcome to the Power of You.
Indeed. Glad you're here. Welcome to it.
We're not you, and we're going to talk about how you can be powerful.
That is right. This is all about you. It's about in helping you gain power as a leader. What does that mean?
All things leadership.
Yeah.
So we're going to blow through some stuff here today. We've got kind of a tight timeline that we're going to be working off of.
My fault. So, yeah. Here we go.
Which is just
Let's
good
go.
Because we'll truncate it. We'll tighten it up and make it look really pretty.
Good right. That's right.
So this is the power of you. And what we're doing with this is looking at how leaders lead. And I mean, this is kind of the opening slide in all of these here. This time we're looking through the lens of alignment, improvement, and culture. And we're going to be touching on, Mr. Deming's again, Edward.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So this slide, alignment over convenience. This is kind of a tangential sort of a thing here, but Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill's book, he talks about drifting, how people drift. And this has application to what we're doing because they drift because things become convenient. And what do you align with? What do you have your team align with? And if you're not paying attention to alignment rather than convenience, things start to get a little squirrely out there. So what we're going to be looking at through the lens of leadership here, making daily improvements, daily practice. How do you improve? So there's skills that get developed here. So when we're looking at how you actually facilitate scaling from a leadership perspective in your organization, pressure is part of it, but it's not the only thing. And I say pressure in the sense of stretch goals and that sort of stuff. You kind of make people uncomfortable. You move them into, but they have to have skills to go along with it. And if you're not looking at in tandem developing skills, you're not going to get the improvement that you want, and you're going to have a culture that can't scale because you want to be able to create a culture that can scale. How's that for a summary slide?
That's a good summary slide. And we're out.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love this quote that you found here.
Yeah, I love this quote, right? People are part of the system. They need help. Many people think of machinery and data processing when I mention so there's this tendency, and we say it in stuff that we do when we talk about systems of accountability, right? And I jump in, it's like, no, it has nothing to do with a Trello board. That's important, but that's a thing. But it's funny because we're going to kind of get into this today about a few of them know that recruitment, training, supervision, and age to production workers are part of the system. There has to be, from the leader's perspective, there has to be an underpinning, a system in place to support those people. Same thing when you think about a manufacturing process. For those of you that are manufacturers, you do this, now you do this, now you do this, and it goes down a line. It's very similar when we think of the people. If we don't build that system, we break the machine, because the people are the machine. The other things that's just stuff.
Yeah,
stuff.
People are the machine. And what's interesting, I mean, again, this whole power of you is all things leadership. And I've used that language very specifically, all things leadership, because Deming's work has been around. I mean, he basically was a foundation of TQM, and you'll see it today in Agile conversations, Scrum, I mean, just all kinds of different things that are all organized around managing for quality. You also need to be able to lead for quality. And Deming's 14 principles really rock when you start pushing it through a leadership filter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, and you mentioned that, for those of you, for those of you that are listening, if you've not listened or studied or read Deming, read Deming, right? Total quality management. When we talk about TQM, we talk about JIT, just in time. Deming was that guy. He was the guy that actually put the glue to all of it and brought it all together. But I love your comment, Blaine, around it is about managing. There's things we do to manage, which is the resourcing, all of that, that aspect of it. But there is a leading component.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. How do you, you manage change, but you lead people through change.
Yes.
And total quality management is all about iterative changes on an ongoing basis. I mean, the Japanese did this, obviously. It came to be called Kaizen, continual improvement. But you lead people through that process. You do it effectively, and you end up developing a culture that begins to expect change as the norm.
Right.
Which is a very interesting take on an organization.
Yeah.
When the culture starts pushing back and going, we haven't changed for a while. Something's wrong. You have actually kind of landed in the honeypot here. That is it's a sweet spot. This is good.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Love that. Just had a conversation about that with a client this morning. Yeah. It's about change. Get out of your comfort zone. If you're in your comfort zone every day,
that's what leaders do. They move people out of comfort. It's interesting. Management it organizes and prides itself on predictability and stability.
Right.
Yeah. Leadership is a chaos causing, change causing activity. So you've got basically you got oil and water trying to come together here, but you have to be able to manage and actually leverage both of them effectively.
Yeah. It's funny, because as we'll get into the definition of leadership, but it's funny you mentioned that, Blaine, because there is that expectation as a leader. I'm going to do this, and I want zero. I don't want, I'm going to get to my outcome. I'm going to manage it to death. I'm going to I'm going to make diamonds out of that chunk of coal. I'm going to manage it to death. But leadership really is that art of causing chaos.
Yeah.
Controlled chaos.
Great way of saying it.
Yeah, it's the art of
chaos.
The
art of chaos. Activity of influencing.
We should write a book. It would be called The Art of Chaos.
The Art of Chaos. Actually, I'm going to write that down.
Let's do that. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we will co-author that book, Art of Chaos.
There you go. Perfect. Art of Chaos.
Leadership, the way we define it, and Doland and I've got, oh my God, almost 90 years of experience.
Give or take a nickel. Yeah.
Yeah, working with leaders and working with leadership development concepts and strategies and modalities and all kinds of stuff here.
Yeah.
And any consultant worth his or her salt has got a definition of leadership that they actually organize around. This is ours. Yeah, and it's much better than anybody else's.
Yeah, as a matter of fact. But in all humility.
In all humility. I mean, when you strip away all of the characteristics that people typically assign to a leader, their personality traits, the characteristics, whatever it is that you use to describe an effective leader, take it all away, because what you're left with at the end of the day is somebody that's causing movement.
Right.
That's all a leader does, is they cause people to move. They cause movement in a system. And it's interesting, because if you strip it away in that way, by definition, everybody's a leader, but not everybody's effective. I mean, I'm going to say everybody's a leader. If I happen to come into your space, you're going to have to move to accommodate my presence. I showed up, and you got to adjust yourself. Yeah. This is happening all the time in companies. People are always showing up, and people are always having to kind of adjust to accommodate that.
Right.
So they're always causing movement. All of us are always causing movement. The question is it effective? Is it movement in the direction that serves us getting what we say we want, which is where this whole definition got developed.
Yeah.
Activity of influencing takes command and control out of the mix here. Yeah. Influencing. Yeah. And it's a recognition that when literally before I open my mouth, when I come in the room, people start reorganizing to accommodate my presence.
Oh boy.
And if I'm not aware of what's going on there, I'm rolling a big rock up a hill because people are moving in a direction that was unintended. And I'm saying, go this way. And they're going, I don't trust you. And that I don't trust you. It's kind of, ooh, yeah, that's the influencing piece. So noticing how, it's art, influencing others in order to co-create ownership transfers. It's not just my idea anymore. It's our idea now. Something magical has happened.
Yeah.
Coordinated movement, by definition, coordinated movement. We're causing people to move, ideally into uncharted territory, because we're creating something we've never created before. So how do you coordinate when you're doing that kind of movement? Because guaranteed, you're going to have conflict. You're going to step on each other's toes. So coordinated movement is not about harmony. Coordinated movement is about the appropriate and judicious use of conflict in service of moving towards something that we say we want, which is that worthy ideal, pursuit of a worthy ideal, something that gets me up out of bed. And that worthy ideal piece has to do with the distinction between motivation, which is externally driven, and inspiration, which taps into something people go, ooh, I can't not have that. I've got to go get that.
Yeah.
Sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So that's our definition. We got a whole model that we work with around that.
We do. We do. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Whenever we talk about that, it just, if you're listening to this, I say this frequently, go back and look at that and listen to what Blaine was talking about each of the discrete components, and map those against your day, map those against your activities, map those against your meetings, map those against that HR conversation or the finance conversation, map those around that, because we do as leaders, you influence. The moment you show up, you influence.
And that, for the sake of what, just kind of a sort of a deep dive. We're not going to talk about this a lot. We talk about it all the time, but it's not your vision. It's not your goals or objectives.
No.
It's that thing that taps into people's spirit.
Right.
It's kind of, they hear about it. They kind of, and you can't tell somebody what it is. You have to ask, you have to pose a question, or at least open the door for curiosity to take hold, where they begin to look at what really matters here.
Mm-hmm.
What really matters to me as a part of this larger organization? What really matters to me in terms of participating in this? What matters? What do I get to have, do, or be that I wouldn't get to have, do, or be if this wasn't in process, or if this wasn't what we were trying to achieve? Right. That becomes the worthy ideal. So the vision is one thing, but why does it matter? That's something else.
Right.
That's something else.
And it's so deeply personal. And it has to be in alignment. I mean, there's a worthy ideal for your organization, for your company, for your team as a gathering. There's an alignment that occurs there, but it is deeply unique. If we don't know that when we get home, and we don't feel that we worked towards our individual worthy ideal, we won't stay.
Exactly. Or we might stay just for the paycheck, but then you've got people that are just kind of checking the box.
They're out.
Yeah. Yeah, they're retired in place, or RIP. It's kind of like you're not going to get continual improvement. You're not going to get quality, in the way that you'd like to have quality. Right. Any of that stuff comes into play here, which actually leads us into why we're paying attention to this whole notion of Deming. Yeah, all of this takes place, and this is all through a leadership conversation. All of this takes place in a universe, a very specific leadership universe. And what we typically see are people organizing around the why, what, and how, which is the vision, strategy, tactics piece of it. Deming, in this particular last week's episode, this episode, the next two episodes, we're looking at the mindset of quality, the mindset of, from a leadership perspective, that informs how quality gets created in a product or service. And it's that mindset, which is really that's where the gold is. That's where you'll find this vein that just kind of goes, if we can exploit that, everything else changes. And the idea of spirit, imagination is the gateway into the spirit. What's inspiring spirit? What's inspiring me? And then the four pillars, this kind of foundational, and this universe actually sits on top of.
Yeah, it is. What do you do with it? How do you build trust and autonomy? How do you create a team that has permission to do things? What does it mean to communicate? And communicate isn't that it can be the words, but communication is that willingness to be vulnerable. It is that, and the transparency. It's fun. Yesterday, I had one of the podcasts yesterday I was doing yesterday, interviewing a gentleman, and we were talking, and he said something about transparency just in passing real quickly, Blaine. He mentioned that the component of transparency, because a lot of leaders seize up on that word, because I can't show them the books, and I can't, it is transparency is what is meaningful to that individual that matters. And I went, oh, have you been listening to us? But that transparency, what matters to them? And then growth and innovation. Innovation is that willingness to think out of the box, to try something new. It's Kaizen. And then accountability. We were talking about the systems earlier. It's not a Trello board. I'll say that again. It is that agreement that we have between the two of us on how we act, how we talk, how we communicate. It is that commitment then, and that contract that we create between each other. And that's what we live into that. That is accountability. That's what you're looking for. And
that's actually where Deming's work really resonates, is on that whole accountability piece. Yeah. When we're looking at quality is not, it's not owned by the person at the top. Yeah. It's owned by the system. Quality has to be owned by the system.
Right.
Everybody's a part.
Right.
And that's where this becomes very, very, I think, interesting. Yeah. Just a real quick biographical, historical, nugget here. W. Edwards Deming, back in the 50s, he's a statistician. And he started, kind of working with manufacturing processes and manufacturing organizations, looking at how you can actually work with, the whole system. And he took a whole system approach to this. The end product, which is where typically most metrics were organized at that time about quality. Did we get a quality product at the end? And if we didn't, okay, we now need to figure out what. He said, no, let's go back to the very beginning and systematize the whole process, so every step of the way has a qualitative metric and a qualitative component to it. And if we've got quality all the way up, we're going to get quality at the end. Well, what's interesting about this is, he was kind of poo-pooed by particularly the American automotive industry back in the 50s and early 60s. And he said, well, fine, I'll take my marbles and go to Japan. He was actually invited to come to Japan and brought his whole philosophy that ended up becoming TQM, Total Quality Management. He brought his philosophy to Japan, and they ended up developing something called the Deming Prize. And the Deming Prize is the single most prestigious business award that you can get in Japan. It's the equivalent of the Baldrige Prize here in the US. So Deming has got a lot of notoriety around the world in terms of this whole philosophy. It's a whole system philosophy about how quality gets delivered. So from a leadership perspective, you're looking at qualitative movement. And we use, in the consulting work that Doland and I work do together and independently here, the term elegant. As a leader, is your leadership elegant? And what we mean by elegant is not sartorial. It's not, do you look good? It's about, do you have movement being generated that is that is causing minimal disruption, I guess unintended consequences are minimized. That's elegant. You think about coding. If you're writing software code, elegant code is bug-free.
Right.
Okay. That's what we're looking at, when we're looking at elegant leadership. It's bug-free. You don't have to go back and clean up after yourself. And you and I both have got war stories about leaders that really messed it up and had to go back and clean up after themselves. That's why we took command and control out of our definition.
Thank God I never had to go clean up after myself.
Oh, no, you never did either. Me,
no.
I about sunk my company one time around it. And anyway, that's another.
At least not exactly. Yeah, not. But it's funny because today we've done 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to do 4, 5, and 6 today. But it's fun because when I was looking at these, and as we've looked at them, separately, and now we'll talk about them together, it's that moment of so why the hell not price alone in the practice of awarding business on price alone? What? Okay, we're talking about leadership. That sounds like isn't that like a management thing? And then improve constantly and forever. OJT, training on the job, and Deming was it's like manage. So it's going to be fun to kind of take these apart and apply them against a leadership mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So and what that hooks into.
Yeah. So the idea of mindset, lowest cost provider, lowest cost supplier.
Yep.
If you're fixated on running your business through a P&L chart or through a spreadsheet, you're going to be paying attention to numbers, and you're not going to be necessarily paying attention to some other things that really lend themselves to having a dramatic impact on the quality of your service or product.
Right.
So some of the things that you want to start paying attention to have to do with prioritizing trust, quality, and alignment over low-cost deals. And think about suppliers, think about vendors. Do you trust your vendors? Have you got a relational platform in place where you can have hard conversations when something isn't up to par?
Right.
And you trust that they're going to address it because they're aligned with your for the sake of what as a business. They understand why you're doing what you're doing and the need for a high quality widget that you're inserting into your product.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny because when I in thinking about this, it is that there's that little graphic at the part over there that's got the little circle on it with business team, vendor, and for the sake of what. It is one of those things, Blaine, where it's like I was blessed in my career to have the opportunity several times to develop channels.
Mm-hmm.
And channel is not a TV channel. Channel is a channel of manufacturers who either are delivering service on your behalf or creating something that's going to be integrated into your product. And it's a channel. And one of the lessons I learned early on through that whole process, this long time ago, was to kind of paraphrase what we're talking about on this slide, which is if that vendor, as we would call them a vendor, doesn't understand you're for the sake of what, if they don't understand that, you're disconnected. You just become another client. You're just another thing in their world, and they're another thing in your world. And when you develop that, the trust and the quality, and you expose them to the same things you lead your team with, you lead your vendors in the same manner, and you expose them to that, you create that alignment. And you'll find, I think, that out of that comes trust. Out of that comes an attention to the quality that you're looking for so you can move forward in your for the sake of what. And they get to celebrate that with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They become part of the party. One of the things that we would do all the time is, and we would start every call with a core values review, and we would email the core values to the vendors. And I would ask the vendors to say the core values. They don't have to memorize them, but say my core values. So if my team does it, you do it.
Because you're part of my system.
Yeah. And I'll do the same for you if you would like me to. And most of them were blown away because they kind of went, well, I don't even know that we have core values. So I was like, well, welcome to the family.
Yeah. And to that point, these values, behavior is organized off of meaning. People will behave in ways that are, this is where the subconscious and the mindset comes into play here. People never behave out of integrity with a value set. They often never do. And if you find somebody that is, kind of squirrely and they're feeling their values are being compromised.
Right.
So being able to bring values into the conversation, and this goes right back to the very beginning of our episode this morning or today. People are a part of the system. It's not just machines.
Right. Right.
So, and
Yes.
all an organization is at the end of the day is a collection of people in relationship. That's all it is. And the obvious is obvious, the interpersonal relationships, but they have relationship with values. They have relationship with work process. They have relationship with vendors. The vendor has a relationship with your for the sake of what? Just like your employees have a relationship with the for the sake of what? If it's not understood, appreciated, and valued, you're going to get squirrely behavior, which is going to compromise quality.
Yeah, that's a technical term, by the way, squirrely behavior.
Squirrely behavior.
But you will get squirrely behavior. There will be misses. There will be misses. Right?
And this sets up reactivity. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, squirrely behavior sets up reactivity. Well, what are they going? Those idiots. I'm going to go get another vendor. Yeah. Well, no, let's back that truck up and see what relational dynamic was not being addressed.
Right.
Level setting expectations. They help create clarity and they eliminate the hidden costs and surprises of having to do it over again.
Oh,
this is where elegance actually begins to pay dividends. Minimize unintended consequences.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when your vendors and the team members are aligned, vendors and team members are aligned, suppliers and team members are aligned around shared metrics. One of the metrics has to do with values alignment. Alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that transparency. And then ultimately ends. It's funny because I like that last bullet, right? Aligned relationships grow with you over time. It would always surprise me how far our vendor was willing to go as our relationship deepened over time, over years.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're doing that short term, reactive, that creates drag.
Yeah.
It's like it's Sisyphus. It's pushing a rock uphill. Because you're not founded in a relationship. You're not founded in that circle of trust that brings everybody together for one common cause.
Yeah.
For one common thing.
And in drag in a business context here, particularly with vendors and suppliers, those relationships, that drag looks like, God, I need to have a conversation with them and I don't want to. That's one way that shows up. It slows everything down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, when I was doing work with, I won't remember, name the client here, but we were doing a whole lot of leadership development work with this client, and they were having difficulty with one of their vendors. And I was talking to, my direct contact at that point. Says, well,
sure.
What do we need to do to have a conversation with his counterpart over on the other side? He says, I don't know what it is. I just don't want to have it. The guy's a jerk. And I said, well, but you need to work with him, right? Yeah, I know, but okay. We've got misalignment in values. We've got misalignment in behavior. We've got, all kind of drag.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time. This is not new news to anybody listening.
No, this is endemic in a lot of organizations. Oh yeah. So, and then constant improve, right? Improve constantly and forever, Kaizen. And we talk about this.
Yes.
It's the commitment. It's growth and innovation. It is the commitment to always improving system, services, and people. And all of those three things are all interconnected. It is not a system. It is not a service. It is not a people. This is a living, breathing piece that all hooks together. And the gap with not focusing. I did a quote this morning with one of my clients was reminding them what got you here today isn't going to get you there tomorrow.
Yep.
So if you're not continually looking for improving, and improving doesn't mean we're only learning from mistakes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that point. I had a client the other day, this was 2 years ago. That was
That's the other day. At this point in our life,
in my age, 2 years ago is the other day. But they were, they'd been wrestling with a knotty problem. I mean, just kind of this sort of a thing. And they finally had a breakthrough where they came up with a solution, and they just went, and then what I threw into the mix was, congratulations. What are 2 other ways that you can solve this same issue? And they went, what?
Oh my.
So, no, hilarious. I mean, this one's going to work. There's no question about that, or there's very little question about that. But what would be 2 other ways that you could solve this problem as well?
Oh, fan. That's such a good question.
To their credit, they stepped up to the challenge, and they actually came up with a couple of other ways, one of which actually was better than the original one that they had come up with.
Yeah.
That willingness to just, it's working. It's working. Yeah. Which kind of goes against the if it's not broken, don't fix it sort of a thing.
Right.
No. Yeah. If it's working well, let's find ways to make it work better.
Right. Exactly. What can we do? Ease and elegance. What can we do? One confident step. And anyway, we'll go on through the bullets. A fixed mindset tries to protect what works. Now, that's what we're just talking about. It's that. So it's funny because when I was thinking of this, and kind of reviewing it for today, it is what I loved is tries to protect.
Yes,
we like to protect, right? I want to protect that. I mean, because I know this. I'm going to protect that. This thing over here is not comfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've not done that before,
which is great news.
It is. That's that's the chaos.
Yeah.
There you go. Therein lies the chaos and the change and friction. We could completely digress. When your team members, when they embrace experimentation and learning is the norm, you stop fearing failure. And I think one of the important things in here is that comes out of Kaizen. There's a great book out there, by the way. I'll recommend it if anybody's listening. For those of you listening,
thank you. Hey, we've got a huge audience.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you, baby. Thank you, baby. Go get the book called The Toyota Way and read about Kaizen. Grab that book and take a look at it. But one of the things that as a leader, we fear punitive action. And when change creates that opportunity for that punitive action. When you create that culture and you have a team that's willing to experiment and a system, right? The first bullet, system, services, and people, and a system in place to support it, you stop fearing failure. It becomes a piece of learning that gives you the opportunity to move forward. And that's where scaling comes in.
Yep. And the way that you scale off of that has to do with the sharing component. Yeah. This is the transparency, open communication. Here's what we did. Here's what didn't work. Here's what did work. So, if you trust yourself and you've taken fear of failure out of the conversation, people are very willing to talk about what they learned when things went sideways.
Right.
And that's gold.
Right.
Yeah. Honda Soichiro, the founder of the Honda Motor Company, was asked one time, and he was in the Japanese culture, he was a maverick. I mean, this guy, you've heard the adage, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down.
Yeah.
He stood up real big.
Yeah.
But he was asked prior, just a little bit before he died, what was the secret to your success as an entrepreneur? He says it was simple. And he literally did say it was very simple. I made as many mistakes as I could, as fast as I could. That was the only way I could learn to be successful. Now, it wasn't stupid mistakes. It wasn't mistakes that he had made before that he just, forgot to communicate about. Make as many mistakes because if you're moving into uncharted territory, you don't know the safe path. You absolutely have not a clue where the minefield actually is populated, and things will blow up. You go, well, okay, we learned something there. Yeah. So, without being cliche about it, mistakes are basically lessons. Now, all it is an information source. And that's what highly effective, highly creative, highly successful organizations look for, is information that can be translated into knowledge that allows for our ability to move more elegantly of where we want to go. That's the leadership dynamic.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. And it's that last bullet. It comes down to, and I love this thing about from when, people get lost in the do, right? The strategy, tactics, all that. They get lost in that, but it is about mindset. It is breaking the pattern. That's what mindset is really. That's the chaos component. Break the pattern.
Yeah.
Take the risk. Break the pattern.
You interrupt the pattern, you can drop something new in. As long as the pattern is running, it will kick out anything that tries to drop in. The pattern is that powerful. That's the mindset.
Yeah, definitely. Doctor?
OJT, on the job training. Institute training on the job. Now, we use some very specific word here on this first bullet. An amateur mindset assumes people should already know. There's a distinction between an amateur and a professional. When we look at it through sports metaphor, professionals will do whatever they need to do in order to succeed. They really have that mindset. They'll get up at 4 o'clock. I think of Kobe Bryant here. Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go out and just practice free throws. Practice my 3 points. At 3 o'clock before anybody else gets into the gym. Just rigorous. Michael Jordan did the same thing.
Yeah.
Woods did the same thing. And that's in the sports arena. But amateurs, I'll do enough just to get by. And that I'll do enough just to get by defaults towards, people should just know their jobs. From a leadership standpoint, people should just know their jobs.
Yeah.
So
I love this. I don't know how many times I heard that in my career. They should just know.
They should just know, damn it. Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
You can't do that. If you're looking to scale, literally looking to scale with quality, minimizing unintended consequences, professionals will go the extra mile. And that extra mile looks like making sure people have the resources, the training, and the knowledge that they need to get that new job, that new iteration of the job done.
Yeah.
We know that they know how to do the old job, but how do you leverage it? That's what we want to be able to look at. So as a leader, you own the clarity that you expect from others. Now that, kind of interesting way of saying that. If they're unclear, that's on you as a leader. This goes back to one of the pillars in the 4 pillars model here: communication mastery. We talk about this, in the ACCCT model, or ACT model of leadership. Communication mastery.
Right.
Don't assume that they're going to figure it out. Communication here.
No.
Clarity isn't just about giving them the information. It's about providing a context that generates meaning. What matters about this? What matters about this? Oh, I can connect that dot. Now you've got somebody that's perking up and they're going, tell me more. And they start leaning in.
Oh yeah. I love that. The one thing, in the next bullet, my favorite part of the whole statement is set them up to win.
Yep.
I was thinking about that being a musician, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't know how many, we'll call them gigs, how many gigs I've played in my life. Thousands, different from multiple thousands of people down to 6, depends, a lot of stuff. Never once have I had anybody ever in an audience say, boy, I hope these guys are going to suck.
Good point.
We're all there as leaders side by side. So far, maybe they have, I don't know, but nobody said it to me yet. But it is that we're there. When you are there, your intention, your deep intention and purpose as the leader is you're there. You're not hoping they suck. You're not setting that person up to fail.
Right.
You're not going to sit in the meeting and look at Bob across the room, because Bob's your uncle. You're going to look at Bob across the room and say, boy, I hope Bob sucks. I hope this all blows to hell in a handbasket. I want to set them up to win, equip them. And you mentioned that in the other ones, but And I like the last bullet. It goes back to on the previous slide about systems, processes, people. Create a rhythm. Create that system and structure around learning.
Yep.
Create that. There was an interview I did with a gentleman who, and I won't mention him by name, he'll know who he is, CEO of Butterball Farms. And we were talking, and one of the, that's as close as I'll get to it. And we were talking, and his dad owned the business. And one of the things that he did was he created this skunk works thing inside of it to teach leadership, because it was a shift moving from a command and control to a leadership model inside of the organization. So he created a rhythm and structure around learning to begin to bring people into the process, and ultimately became the culture of the business. So it became part of who they are. So it's up to you as the leader, focus on that culture.
Yep.
Help them find the resources, but focus on that culture.
Yep. And that's, leaders have a number of different jobs.
Oh boy.
It's, bringing possibility into the minds of people so that they can go, this is probable. So moving possibility into probability so that it can become a reality. That's one thing. The other one has to do with attention on culture. And culture is the mindset of the organization. That's one way to think about what is culture in an organization. Well, it's the mindset. It's the ways we've agreed, both explicitly and implicitly, to behave with each other, to think with each other. Right. And don't make any mistake in thinking that the organization doesn't think. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Oh boy. You won't see it. It's not visible, but there's an organizational think. There's a group think that's present. That's called culture.
That's really important. Yeah.
You want to be able to, and it's patterned. Just goes back to the other side, the other bullet points we were making. It's a patterned way of thinking. It's a patterned way of processing information. You introduce change, it gets run through that patterned way of assessing. Where does it fit? Oh, it doesn't fit. It gets kicked out.
Yeah.
So now you've got unintended consequences, and you've got an organization that stops because it's not used to continual improvement.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because as you were talking about that, I was thinking about things that we talk about with clients and in our mastermind, and that is that because the organization, the culture will think. It will think. If you don't focus as a leader, it's, to your point, it's one of the million things that a leader does. If you don't, the culture will make up its own story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
They'll go, yeah.
We got a whole body of information around that one.
Oh my!
That is going to take us way down a rabbit hole if we allow ourselves.
Yeah, we'll keep going. Let's keep going. Doctor?
Yeah, right now we're looking at principles 4, 5, and 6.
Yes.
So these are some of the symptoms that you're going to see if this mindset of quality is not pervasive from a leadership perspective. Some of the symptoms you're going to see is chronic vendor turnover and costly mistakes. And I say costly mistakes, a one-off mistake is going to cost something. Costly mistakes are ones that could have been avoided or continue to be repeated because nobody communicated about it.
Yeah.
So that shows up by constantly chasing the lowest bidder, inconsistent quality through the bidding process, and all of that stuff. Delayed deliveries because you don't have trust to have a hard conversation. Take your pick. There's all kinds of stuff embedded in that. Chronic vendor turnover, costly mistakes, stagnation and resistance to change. We just talked about that a moment ago.
Right.
If the mindset of the organization is about protect and preserve what the status quo, and just kind of fold the tent and go home, because your organization is eventually going to collapse.
Yeah. Yeah. And if your employees are undertrained, or if their employees are undertrained and overwhelmed,
yep,
you've expected, that goes back to that. I love that statement. Oh, they'll figure it out.
Yep.
They'll figure it out. What's the cost of figuring it out? First of all, that's all my question is, what's the cost of figuring it out? But if you don't have that rhythm and you're not building that, if you're not building that culture, where it becomes clear. There's sometimes it's funny. There's that old acronym of or the symptom of people being afraid to invest in employees. Well, if I teach them, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
Or they're going to go to a competitor. That's going to happen. Well, you know what? If you don't teach them to invest in them, they're going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's death and taxes. It is a matter of time. And to your point, they're either RIP,
yep,
or they're going to punch out and go find someplace else where they feel better. And particularly the generation now that's coming into the world.
Oh boy. Yeah, this generation, this is the first time in history where we've got 6 generations in the workforce at one time.
Yeah.
And as a leader, you talk about crazy making, because the expectations, the meaning people make up about the experience of working, the experience of contributing to what? I mean, all of that stuff comes into play here. So firefighting literally becomes the norm because you're not clear about what's going on, because you haven't developed trusted partners, trusted conversation, trusted systems, that people can bring to the table, things that they're working with. I mean, all of that stuff. This is a TQM conundrum. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Because if an organization is nothing more than people in relationships, you've got 6 generations that are trying to relate, and they've got different worldviews. And because they have different worldviews, they've got different ways of assessing what's real,
right?
And what needs to be real, and what's meaningful and what's not. So how do you lead that?
Yeah, because your reality is not theirs.
Exactly.
And
it shouldn't be necessarily.
No, it should not.
This is where diversity of opinion, diversity of viewpoints, diversity of vantage points really begins to become your best friend if you can know how to leverage it well. And this is going back to something we said right at the beginning. Coordinated movement is not about harmony. It's about the judicious and appropriate use of conflict. How do you use the inevitable conflict that is going to be there as you move towards that worthy ideal? That's a quality question. That's a quality question that a leader needs to be able to answer for themselves.
Yep.
Whew.
4, 5, and 6, baby.
4, 5, and 6.
There you go.
I hear the what do I hear? I hear the horns tooting. Jericho.
So what do you do? So we're going to tell you what to go do. There you go. This is where we're going to lead you.
Yep. Now, a couple of things. We've got a LinkedIn group.
Yeah.
And so those of you that are familiar with LinkedIn, you can go to, just search Power of You. There's a LinkedIn group. It's an invitation group. I mean, you'll need permission from us to come in. But this is a repository of just all kinds of things, resource materials that Doland and I have generated over combined almost 90 years. So all kinds of stuff is going to be present there. So that's one thing. The other thing is we are doing these Power of You live sessions every week for the foreseeable future. We've got over 20 plus now that we've got in the hopper. They're live. And you can find, they're archived live on the different platforms as individual. But it's, searching for them is crazy making, because we're posting content all the time.
You don't want to,
good luck in trying to find one of these Power of You sessions once the window of time is passed. So what we're doing is we're putting them in a repository that you can access. It's now available, and then it's an ever continuously expanding library of content. The Leadership Power of You program. All episodes are present here. leader.blainebartlett.com/power-of-you. I should have taken the hyphens out of there, but it's easier to read this way.
Hyphens make it better.
Yeah, hyphens make it better. But we're going to invite you to actually take advantage of this. Feel free to actually come in and poke around. There is a charge for this. It's a one-time charge. It gives you lifetime access, and feel free, absolutely, to kind of poke around once you've decided that you want to do something with it.
That's right.
Okay.
$1 million.
$1 million. Yeah, such a deal. No, it's, I think, what do we got? 249 right now.
I think it's 249.
Lifetime access.
Yeah.
Every Power of You show is present here, and the PDF of the slides that we've been showing is present. Each one of these episodes have got a PDF associated with it. So,
yep.
And it's going to continue to expand. Every week we upload new content into this site. So feel free to take advantage of it. If this has been useful to you, just think of what all of them would be as a package. Yeah. And we're continuously taking all things leadership. We've done, as was mentioned in the earlier slide, decision making. We got a whole series on decision making, trust. That leadership definition. We did a whole thing on the implications of that leadership definition.
Right.
The spirit of business. When you drop down into that leadership universe, into spirit, what's actually there? What do you work with? So those sorts of things. The 5 lies. We did a whole series on the 5 lies of leadership that typically will trip people up faster than you can say boo. Yeah. So the invitation, go to leader.blainebartlett.com/power-of-you, and you're good to go.
Come join us.
Come join us.
And one last little tidbit, as you become a member, and do go join the LinkedIn group. Come do that. Do become a member of Power of You. One thing we'll encourage you, and Blaine and I talk about this, the intention really is you as a leader. You as a leader are on the hook. Remember, today we talked about developing your team, OGT. So use these powers of you, use the content to also develop your team. This isn't about one license, one person, one thing. Use Power of You, put it to use, help your team, help your leaders.
Absolutely.
Fulfill your destiny. That's your obligation, your requirement as a leader is to develop your team. So do that. We'll invite you to come join us. Okay. That's my 2 cents. There you go.
That's a nickel. That's more than 2 cents.
There you go. Perfect. And we don't even have to make change.
Exactly. Okay, folks, thanks for listening to us today. This is Frick and Frack.
Yep.
Brothers.
We're in. That's right.
So we'll see you next Thursday at noon Pacific.
Yeah.
Let's see. We did 4, 5, and 6 this time. We'll do
more Deming. Yeah.
6, 7, and 8 next time. So
we'll do more.
We're going to be unbundling Deming's 14 principles, continuing. Take care. We'll see you next time.
See ya. Thanks for being with us.